Hey Jack, how's it going? Great, just great. I've got a new idea for a story. Yeah? What's the idea? You see, I just came back from my trip to Beijing, and I just saw New Year's Eve. Wow, that sounds amazing. I know, it inspired me to just take everything I learned and create my own story all about it. Oh, yeah? What do you mean? I'm going to craft my own version of the holiday story. Oh. Oh. Right? Right? The lead will be me. But of course, still dressed in the traditional Chinese garb. Well, maybe you don't want to do my own take on their exotic culture. Fireworks, a slab of all the different zodiacs. No, and all those different... Maybe you shouldn't. So as we're building up to the prime spooks this month, I thought I'd slowly ease myself with the progression of horror. So I decided for my first set of horror films, I'd be looking at children's scary films. Specifically, The Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline. What makes them scary, how are they geared towards children, and how they hold up to me now as an adult. And I chose these films because, honestly, I think they have a lot in common with each other. They're both horror, obviously, but the animation style itself, they're both stop motion with a weird, grotesque, yet realistic glaze over them. They're both character dramas about an individual becoming fed up with their status quo and escaping to a seemingly more idealized version of their life. And both focus a large amount on their set design. However, Nightmare Before Christmas, despite the acclaim, lacks a lot of Coraline's charm. See, in honest, I don't like Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't have any fond memories of it, and I didn't go through a scene phase in middle school. And while I approached it with the hopes of enjoying it, I think it's just not that great. Don't get me wrong, I think the film has some good music numbers, from Jack's angsty solos to Oogie Boogie's jazzy villain tune. This is one of the few Disney films where the protagonist song is on par with the villains, because the music works to inform you of their role and place in the story. There's some great shot composition accentuating the unique landscape of Halloween Town, and the transitions between the scenes allow for a smooth flow between each of them, which in stop motion is a hard thing to earn and not feel choppy. Even the film's physical humor, with Jack attempting to understand Christmas with logical math equations on a chalkboard, genuinely got me laughing. There's a reason this movie is remembered, and probably because it resonates very well with the creative types. Jack's an artist, and the horror is that he's forced to keep creating the same stale performances each year, and he's burnt out, which makes him instantly relatable to the most great artistic types. And up that vein, he's his own villain. He carries both the protagonist and antagonist role in creating and fixing conflict. You see, that's the best part of this film, but also where it starts to fall apart. Because of Jack's dichotomy, his characterization is a bit all over the place. Some scenes he acts with an earnest ignorance that makes his actions well-meaning, if a bit misdirected, and others have him acting just like a jerk, dismissing concerns and actively ruining everything around him with no real apologies. Which would be fine if the film allowed him to also be the villain, but that's a good place to wonder why the film even needs Oogie Boogie. He's disgusting and he creeps me out, but other than the opening song, he's not mentioned till 42 minutes into the film, and doesn't appear till the 50-minute mark. He's kind of just there so Jack Skellington can have some sort of redemption in the end. Even though he's also been the real antagonist the whole time, it's an interesting relationship between character and story, but it's unearned because it indulges far too much into Jack while lazily trying to be somewhat critical of him. And the other lead, Sally, deserves so much better. I don't think this is a new thing for older movies, but it's definitely not great to women. Sally is the professor's captor, and no one really talks about it in any critical way. Like, I get the gendered horror of her enslavement to the professor, but her true goal in salvation is only to help Jack, even though the movie shows you she has the right idea, but Jack gets all the credit for it and never apologizes to her. It's just not great character work despite the intriguing hook, which is a good summation of the film. Since it's a character-driven story, if the character work is bad, then the plot will be bad too. And the animation of the landscape of Halloween Town is really interesting with a grotesque model design, but when we enter Christmas Land, it has the same ugly design. Santa Claus may look cleaner, but his model looks like a slightly more round mayor. It just kind of blends together to me. And it's fitting how there's a debate about whether this is a Christmas or Halloween film, because it shows it's not really sure what it wants to be, just like how Jack's introspective nature yet childlike tantrum doesn't seem to coexist very well with one another. And more informed people than I have shown how this film is just a case of cultural appropriation, with Jack just taking what he wants from another holiday and trying to make it his own without truly understanding the culture around Christmas. Because the film shows how Jack kind of ruins everything by kidnapping Santa Claus and making himself the center of Christmas and ruining the holiday. It's like, wow, you suck. But Sandy still brings snow to Halloween Town, he still gets to be with Sally, and he's reinvigorated with artistic spirit again. Never mind, I guess appropriate all you want, but I guess it doesn't matter. But yes, I don't think the animation is that great, the plot and characters fall apart, and the moral sucks. But you know what? I guess so does Tim Burton. You know what doesn't suck? Coraline. I watched the film for the first time, and I was pleasantly surprised about the amount of charm that was put into it. I don't think it's perfect, of course, but I think it managed to squeeze a lot of good work into just about 100 minutes. From the beginning of Coraline, we're hit with a very drab and dark atmosphere. Everything has a clear gray wash, with a lot of models and characters blending together in this boring and unflattering monotone of color. But then Coraline pops onto the screen with her bright blue hair and bright yellow jacket. She immediately steals the attention with just her design. It's really simple, bright against dark, but very effective in making her model pop out as a protagonist and odd one out in this world. And not even in just design. Coraline's personality and mannerisms show her never being able to stand still. She's constantly bumping or playing with something to show off her curious, if a bit childish personality. And her combative nature places her at odds with everyone in the film, furthering her displacement in her own world, which also lends itself to the horror of the film, not belonging and frustration about the difference of the world around you. Coraline may be a child, but her anger with her parents about moving and disinterest with her is justifiable. Numerous scenes are dedicated to her parents just dismissing her and giving her chores so she doesn't bother them. Her neighbors are all a weird bunch that she can't seem to get along with, so her frustration of her surroundings might be short-sighted, but still makes her very relatable. But all that changes when the other world is introduced. The other world is finally the place where Coraline finally feels like she belongs. The color and saturation of the set changes to match the vibrancy that Coraline has always exhibited, and due to her parents finally showing her interest, Coraline's descent into darkness makes sense. But the clever thing is, from the very beginning, the other place feels off. Like something isn't right. From the button eyes to the numerous shots of characters looking directly in the camera, to the eccentric characters, each of them still instills a sense of fear. Which is where I think the true terror of this film exists. It's subtle and it creeps up on you, despite it being in plain sight the whole time. Even Coraline knows that something can't be right about this place, but the appeal from both her own desire to the technical way the animators construct it makes it feel like that's where she belongs. A lot of the work here belongs to the other mother. Coraline's real mother is disinterested and doesn't know how to show her she cares, and in some ways that is a kid's own form of terror. But the other mother is a different beast. It lures Coraline in and preys upon her naive mind. Even the construct of the world around her doesn't go very far in a strikingly effective metaphor for Coraline's short-sighted behavior. She sews the other members' mouths together and showing how they're all just her puppets, and her true pale spider-like form with mechanical claws and legs feels equally scary and tastefully designed. And each of the other members of the Otherworld community are done in the same way. Each bend over backwards to cater toward her every need, even spelling out her name in the various performances. It's a terrifying monster of manipulation that really works on the essence of childlike fear, yet exists in a simple yet very disturbing presentation, making for a strong dynamic between protagonist and antagonist. Now, of course, Coraline isn't perfect. There's a subplot about other children's eyes that seems a bit unneeded. Her neighbor doesn't do much but stick to a simple archetype of just being a boy, and I think it does do a big sin of children's movies by placing most of the blame on Coraline for endangering everyone, when the reasons she was lured there are reasons beyond that of a child. I appreciate the film showing her that her parents are trying and aren't just disinterested but distracted, But the fault shouldn't just rest on Coraline for wanting to escape to another world, because hers, at that moment, sucked. So, giving it a charitable read, I think the film's decision to show how a child's perspective of thinking the world revolves around them can lead to being manipulated is very good, because it makes Coraline have to confront the truth of her neighbors and family and accept the weird reality of her world to prevent herself from being destroyed in the other world. And that experience can be very scary for children, but I think it's an important lesson to learn of confronting your feelings, which I think is a pretty layered moral for a children's horror movie. But for now, that's all I got. Let me know your favorite horror movie as a kid down in the comments section below, and thank you for sharing this with your friends, and I'll see you all next time.